everyone, my name is Ksenia, and today my guest here is Jack Cartwheel.
What's up? That's me.
Thank you for being here.
Of course, yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Let's jump right in. It's one of the questions that I usually ask wrestlers, but with you it's a little different because I read some of your other interviews.
Okay.
And I know that you've told Fightful that Effie taught you a lot about wrestling, and
yeah.
you guys were talking about gimmicks and stuff, and you said that Effie said that there's a good thing to have something in your gimmick where it would remind people of you outside of wrestling.
Yeah, 100%.
And that really stuck with me. I found it really interesting.
Yeah.
So can you tell us how you view your gimmick in that way, and what should it invoke in the viewer, and how does it work?
Well, I mean, my gimmick, I just do a lot of cartwheels. I try to give off kind of a confident college kid, a little bit cocky, but hardworking type vibe. You know, I wanted to kind of have a persona that somebody could see outside of wrestling as something to look up to, you know, in that type of way. Something that a little kid could see and be like, oh, hey, that's a kid that's a guy who's not he's cool, he's good, but he's not an asshole about it. You know what I mean? But then something about the gimmick in terms of that is yeah, you want to have some stuff outside of wrestling to be able to pull people into wrestling. If they're not a wrestling fan, that's another person I want to be. I want to be a wrestler for non-wrestling fans, a wrestler for the girlfriend or random dude or 25-year-old kid who's coming into a wrestling show for the first time. They're seeing all these, I mean, not at GCW, this isn't the case here, but that there's a lot of older people doing all this stuff, and then all of a sudden, oh hey, look, there's this young kid with all this energy doing cool stuff, giving off kind of modern 2020 college, you know, vibes like that, and something that's oh, this isn't my old 1980s wrestling stuff. This is cool. Not that wasn't cool, but the coolness of today has changed, you know. Yeah.
It's interesting that you mention first timers, because it's always amusing to see when a person comes to a wrestling show for the first time.
Yeah.
It's always amusing to see who they single out, who they remember.
Sure.
And I feel it tells us a lot about how compelling the gimmick is.
True.
In the usual environment.
Yeah.
That's it on the questions, just a remark about that. Yeah. So I also know that you have an extensive gymnastics background, and your in-ring style is kind of connected to that.
Yeah.
And I feel on the one hand, with such in-ring styles, they have been on the rise, because people like stuff that you can make gifts with, that you can get engaged with just by seeing one sequence or one move. But on the other hand, I feel a lot of people recently have been complaining about oh, everyone does flippy stuff.
Yeah.
Have you had some backlash with that? People complained.
Not as much as people complaining, just a lot of people warning me about things that, I mean, stuff that I kind of understand, I get it, you know, I can't, people, when I'm 50, I don't know if I can do the stuff that I'm doing now, you know, when Undertaker, or I mean, John Cena's not 50 yet, but soon, they can still do the things that they're doing now, which is the big issue with how people feel their flippy shit's going now. Is okay, you can do that flippy shit until what, you're 35, 40 maybe, you know? So that's something that I've been getting a lot. That's kind of the backlash that I've been getting. And then I feel just as long as you have the correct timing and storytelling in the ring, it shouldn't matter whether you're even doing a body slam versus doing a moonsault. It's the same story. I guess not with all the good guy exhibition stuff that's going on now, but and still in terms of though, you're still trying to tell a story, you're still trying to win. That's the point. That's the idea. You're trying to win the match, and as long as the audience understands that and they see that you care about winning, that there's passion behind what's going on, that's what's important to me. Getting a feeling, you know.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that too, because usually the way people argue that, it's almost like they try to juxtapose in-ring psychology to flippy stuff, but they're not exclusionary, right?
Yeah, right.
So I know that for some people it's oh, people talk about the realm of believability a lot. And for people it's oh, if you really want to win, and if you really hate each other, if it's a grudge feud type of thing, then you just try to like hit each other and not do the flippy things. But do you feel like really like in-ring psychology in this modern sense can very much coexist with the flippy stuff and with the new?
Yeah, 100%. I think that and it has to do with just how extreme you want to go with it. You know, like maybe the first couple times you're meeting someone, you're just having the match to have a match, and then as things progress and it gets on and on, like me and Brandon Gatson, we're gonna have our next match. I won the first one. And in the second match, you know, I have no clue what's going to happen, but I know that we're having more matches after that. And then the next time I see him, we'll call back stuff from when we've had our match before, because I remember what happened. And then it could be some type of story that has to do with that like not exactly a physically good versus bad, but like this guy beat me. I'm upset. It's not that I'm upset that he's a dickhead, he's a piece of shit. It's like, he beat me. I want to be the one who wins, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could still do shit like that.
Yeah. Another thing that people have been talking about a lot is that, I'm talking about some like abstract people, but you guys know who you are in the comments. Like, that, I might not agree with that, but we know who I'm talking about. That in wrestling, in modern wrestling, there's this abundance of moves of all sorts that are very complicated and like maybe even dangerous and flashy and showy, but in like retro wrestling it was like, oh, they're doing a bunch of basic things, but then this person has this one finisher that's like, whoa, and now it's not like that, and now it's like smudged, and now finishers are not as protected, and like the moves maybe don't like amaze you as much when there's so many of them. But also on the other hand, when we take other sports, even gymnastics, say like 20 years ago, a routine would look way different than it looks 100%. Right now. So do you feel like this direction that wrestling is following is just a natural thing that any sport goes through, or are we really losing something about like the structure of a wrestling match?
I haven't really thought about that, but I think so, yeah, to an extent. I mean, everything evolves, everything goes through its you know, either, I forgot exactly what it is, but like adapt or be left behind, you know, and that's, and it's interesting, and it's something that a lot of people are having to get over, and I think also just live entertainment as a whole is going to be in danger in the next 15 years in terms of like just virtual reality and all this crazy stuff with science and technology and stuff. How relevant will wrestling be in 15 years when everyone will be living in VR sets or whatever, you know, like it's just impossible to know what the future will hold like that. But yeah, no, I do think that wrestling is just another thing that when things evolve, it gets slicker, it gets tighter, it gets more competitive, not more competitive, but like it gets evolved, you know.
I mean, I think I understand what you mean when you say more competitive. It's not as in competitive as in, again, like a sport, but more like there are more people who can do more stuff, and if you can't, you're just not there. You just don't
and a lot of that is access to training schools, you know, like in like 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, it would be like crazy to be like, oh, hey, yeah, like I started training at like this school, because there weren't as many schools, even close, and like the schools that there were super expensive. They had like, it's kind of that bridge that's like, you have to go through all these things before you even want to have a match in the first place. That huge barrier to stop people from even joining wrestling. And then now, like in the past 10 or 5 years, you know, that barrier is getting smaller and smaller, and people are having, as people who just want to wrestle, I mean, everyone who wants to wrestle should have access to wrestling, but it doesn't take as much to have your first match, and you're getting more and more and more wrestlers. I mean, which is a great thing for like the independence, and the independence is booming now better than it's ever been.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, so some interesting stuff, some cool stuff is going on.
And with the indies booming, just like you mentioned, I first of all agree completely. But I feel like you are in all the like hot spots of that, because you're in GCW a lot and you're in PWG a lot.
Yes.
So how has this experience been for you? And like, do you feel like you ended up in those places because it was your goal and because you know that it's going to be the place to be, or has it just happened and like to take you by storm?
Well, I mean, I don't think anything happens on just a whim. You know, I had in my notebook in like my goals list that's over there, and like my goals for like 2021 was to be at a PWG show to just watch, or like to just help do ring crew. So the fact that I've been on 3 by now like is fucking awesome. I think like a lot of my style has to do with it. I have a decent body, I guess, which is good, because it's wrestling, you know, like it's very visual, you know. If you want to be one of the top guys, you want to, not that you can't be if you don't have one, but you know, it definitely helps in every single aspect. Just being an okay guy, you know, being someone to work with, you know, like just don't be a piece of shit. Like people won't talk shit about you. That's one of the biggest things that stops wrestlers from like getting to other places. It's not like their ability or like their storytelling. It's like, oh hey, like is this guy like okay to work with? They're like, no dude, like he's an asshole. So I mean, I think that's been a big part of my journey so far. Just getting along with people, you know, trying to meet people, not just being like the hey I'm Jack. It's like hey I'm Jack, like how are you, like what do you like to do, you know, some shit like that, like making an actual connection instead of just like being some guy in the locker room, be like a guy for the locker room, you know. Yeah.
And I also feel like with the rise of all the like flippy styles now with the popularity, people almost think like it's all that there's to it. But I've seen like wrestlers ruin their own careers who had very good in ring just because they've been assholes.
Yeah.
So don't be an asshole. That's the takeaway. Nice. Also, while doing research on you, I found that you play or used to play football.
Yeah.
Do you still play football?
Yeah. It was that was a really big issue for me throughout the summer. Because like wrestling was going so like amazing throughout the summer, you know, I started getting on GCW. I had my debut at Las Vegas, and I was about to have my first PWG match, and then like fall was coming up, and football is something that I've done since I was in 6th grade, so this would be my 8th or 9th year playing football. And so I play in college. It's a Division III, so it's not. I don't get a scholarship or anything, but like we get a whole lot of perks that are like aren't, you know, you get early classes, you got friendships, you got your buddies, and yeah. So it was a really tough decision. I ended up playing football, which cost me a lot of really cool opportunities. You know, like the Crash in Tijuana, they like had me. They wanted me to like wrestle on a Friday, and it's like I can't do that because I have a game early the next day, and I don't want to like risk anything crazy, you know. So I did as many shows as I could on Sundays. So like there was this really interesting time when I was on the bus going to a football game with like my whole team, and I had my wrestling notebook like in my hand, like thinking about ideas for PWG the next day. It was like I was taking that moment. I was like, what do I even do? Like that's just a really unique situation. I feel like barely anyone's been in.
Definitely.
Yeah, the season went great. I started at fullback, got a lot of playing time. Yeah, it was fun. We'll be doing some training throughout the spring, but nothing serious until next fall, and then I think throughout next summer I'm gonna have to go through a similar internal conflict of will I, won't I, you know, what's important to me, you know. So yeah.
Because that was what I was going to ask. Do you plan to balance those two things long term?
No, not at all. Not at all. And that's a big aspect of it too. Was that football, like this would be my last year.
Oh, okay.
This next year would be my last year, and it would be like just like a couple months, you know. And wrestling is here for a long time, and it's like if I were to. My dad told me, like, when you start something, you should finish it, you know? Yeah. So he's like, oh, I don't care if you quit football or not, but, like, if you start something, finish it. So I don't know about next year yet. I don't want to talk about that exactly. But, yeah, so we'll see.
Okay. Yeah. Also, with how much you've been on the bigger indies, and how we've seen again the indies boom, and I feel like we're faced with like a new generation of wrestlers who don't even want to get signed with a TV company, who are perfectly okay in striving on the indies. Yeah. So for you personally, would it be a goal to be signed by, say, WWE or AEW? Yeah,
no, absolutely. Like it's the WWE, AEW, like both of those things are amazing, super cool. They interesting though is like what's really inspiring to me right now. I really want to work in Japan or something like that. I would want to, like, I understand my name has like a little bit of value, but I want to spread out. I want to get out there. There was build my name up to where at the point if or when or maybe if I do get signed, it would mean a lot more than like, oh hey, yeah, no, he did a couple PWG shows, he did a couple GCW shows. It's like, oh no, like Jack Cartwheel got signed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's how I vision, hopefully, like in the future. But yeah, it's yeah. That's that.
But also right now it feels like it's very different with WWE versus AEW, because AEW has been signing people who aren't names a lot, who have their own following, who have their own fan base, which makes a lot of sense. But with WWE, it's almost like they're going a whole different path, especially with an exterior branding, where it's almost like they want like a blank canvas and they want to like completely wipe it out and just and just create their own talent, I guess. Would you be potentially open to, like, if WWE were to sign you, to just like start over completely and not drop your gimmick and just do everything?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Like, if it's if I were to get signed, you know, and if that was the route that I was going to go, I wouldn't have an issue with kind of dropping a lot of my character that I'm doing right now, you know. But it would just depend on a lot of other factors too, you know, like what else do I have going on at that time? What is the new gimmick, or like, but also I've always been like kind of we're here to do a job also, you know, we're not here, you know, it shouldn't be a pride thing. It shouldn't be like, oh no, like I'm not doing that. I can't do that. I would look stupid out there. It's like, yeah, it's pro wrestling. Like it's
like,
so I would change just a little bit, you know.
Yeah, and this question might or might not be tied to that question, just the way that you personally would want to respond. But I ask wrestlers this a lot and I get very different answers. But what's the one thing that you would never do in wrestling?
One thing I'll never do in wrestling? Ooh, I don't know. I mean, there's all those, like I don't see myself doing like a mud match. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I just don't see myself doing it. Don't get any ideas.
You said you weren't opposed to it. You're giving me ideas right now.
No. I think I'd be down to do a lot of stuff. I know I haven't had a death match yet. I am open to doing it at one point, you know, but
should we expect that from you this year?
Maybe. I could see it happening. I don't know. Something I wouldn't do. I don't know. I wouldn't lose. Can't lose. Never that. I don't see myself giving up on it. On myself in terms of that, like, you know what I mean? Maybe that. I don't see myself giving up on myself. Like maybe, I feel like I'm a big supporter of myself, and then hopefully I don't get too down on myself. You want to be your biggest fan and your biggest critic at the same time.
I get this so much because you should literally root for yourself. You're your own cheerleader, especially in wrestling, especially if you're an indie wrestler, because you're your own PR team, stylist, coach, everything.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's it's like I'm just driving back like late at night, and it's like only you in the car, you know. It's like at the end of the day, like who's really there for, like, there's a lot of people there for you, but like also you gotta be true, you know.
Yeah, and I feel like that goes beyond wrestling. That's a life lesson.
Yeah.
And on this beautiful note, thank you for doing this. If you have anything to plug, this is the time to do it. So you have so many followers. So yes, all of your followers. All of you, just right now, go and click follow.
Yes. So my Instagram is Jack Cartwheel, and my Twitter is Jack Cartwheel. My YouTube is also Jack Cartwheel. I haven't posted that much lately, but I have a couple stuff on there.
So this is a nice moment to start.
Yeah, very true, very true. But yeah, no, Instagram and Twitter is huge. Sweet.
Yeah, all the links will be down below, and thank you so much for being
Sweet,
here.
Of course, thanks for having me.
You guys give this video a like if you had a good time, subscribe, tap the notification bell to never miss an upload, and until next time, goodbye.
Bye.
Because